not every great song announces itself.
Trying to carry it further.
Some records arrive quietly, no screaming vocals, no dramatic key changes, no rush to get your attention. And somehow, those are the songs you never forget. The songs that turned down the lights, slowed down the room, and made time itself seem to move differently. Welcome to Retro Vinyl. Today, we're counting down 10 R&B masterpieces that mastered the art of the slow burn records, so seductive, so patient, and so perfectly crafted that they changed the way soul music approached intimacy forever. Number 10, Hey There Lonely Girl, Eddie Holman, 1969. Hey there, lonely girl. He debuted at the Apollo Theater at the age of 10. He performed at Carnegie Hall as a teenager. And when he finally got his breakthrough moment at 23 years old, he did it with a falsetto so delicate and so precise that even the people who produced the record could not fully explain where it came from. Ever since he broke your heart. Eddie Holman was born in Norfolk, Virginia in 1946 and raised in New York City, where his mother enrolled him in the Victoria School of Music and Arts and pushed him toward a professional singing career before most kids his age had even chosen a hobby. By the time he reached Philadelphia's soul scene in the mid-1960s, he had already developed a vocal range that existed somewhere between tenor and soprano warm in the lower register, heart-stopping in the upper one. Hey There Lonely Girl was a cover. The original, called Hey There Lonely Boy, was recorded in 1963 by Ruby and the Romantics. Holman flipped the gender, changed one word, and rebuilt the entire emotional architecture of the song around his extraordinary aching falsetto. Oh, how I'd love to take your hand. Released in December 1969, the record climbed the Billboard Hot 100 and peaked at number 2 in February 1970, spending 17 weeks on the chart and selling over 1 million copies. It reached number 4 on the R&B chart and hit number 4 in the United Kingdom when it was re-released in 1974. You think that only is too late. The 1 week it held the number 2 position on the Hot 100, the only song keeping it from the top was Sly and the Family Stone's Thank You. Holman later became an ordained Baptist minister. He still performs today with his falsetto intact. Some gifts are not negotiable. Number 9, Pillow Talk Sylvia, 1973. Al Green read the lyrics, said it was too risque, said it went against his religious beliefs, and walked away from one of the biggest hits of 1973. Sylvia Robinson had written Pillow Talk in the early 1970s, and her first call was to Al Green, then the most sensuous voice in soul music. Green passed, so Sylvia, who co-owned Vibration Records with her husband Joe Robinson, made a decision that would define her legacy as a performer. She recorded it herself. The song was built from the inside out a slow, hypnotic groove laid down by drummer Yogi Horton, bassist Fred Pescod, guitarist Walter Morris, and arranger Sammy Lowe on keyboards. Sylvia's vocal was barely above a whisper for most of the track, and then at the coda, Near the end, she let loose in a way that had never been heard on commercial radio before.
Boy, just put that stop sign down and let's get to.
And radio stations across the country shortened the song or refused to play it entirely, cutting the sections where Sylvia's voice dropped to a breathed whisper of "Oh my God." None of it stopped the record.
Let's get together before the day runs us down.
Pillow Talk hit number 1 on the R&B chart and number 3 on the Billboard Hot 100 in the spring of 1973. Sylvia received a Grammy nomination for Best Female R&B Vocal Performance. The song predated Donna Summer's similarly breathless Love to Love You Baby by 2 full years.
Ooh, I don't wanna see you be no fool.
And here is the fact that makes the story complete. Sylvia Robinson went on to co-found Sugar Hill Records, where she produced Rapper's Delight by the Sugar Hill Gang in 1979, the record widely considered the first commercially successful hip-hop single in history.
Can't compete with this pillow talk.
The woman Al Green thought was too risque helped invent 2 entirely different genres of black music. She proved whispers could be louder than screams. The next artist proved that a song about a first time could become a gift that outlasted the generation it was made for.
I'm pleading to you now. Hey, baby, let me try. Tonight is the night that you.
Number 8 tonight is The Night, Betty Wright, 1974.
You said you'll be gentle with me, and I.
She had been performing since the age of 2. She had a hit record at 14. By the time she was 20 years old, Betty Wright had already lived more of a professional music career than most artists see in a lifetime.
I'm nervous. I'm trembling.
Wright was born Bessie Regina Norris in Miami, Florida in 1953, the youngest of 7 children. She began singing gospel with her family group, the Echoes of Joy, before she was old enough for school, and by 11, she had switched to R&B, recording her debut album, My First Time Around, at the age of 14, and scoring her first chart hit with Girls Can't Do What the Guys Do in 1968.
Waiting for you to walk in.
She was so young that when the record landed her an invitation to appear on American Bandstand, her school principal refused to give her the day off. Tonight is the Night came from her 1974 album, Danger High Voltage. And Wright has stated plainly across multiple interviews that the song was drawn directly from her own first sexual experience.
I'm trying hard to relax, but I just.
It is a slow, careful, detailed record, a song told from inside the moment, with a tenderness and a specificity that radio programmers of the era were genuinely unsure how to handle. The original version peaked at number 28 on the R&B chart in 1974.
I wanna play big girl and put on a sexy smile.
4 years later, Wright recorded a live version with a now famous spoken word monologue before the opening verse, and that version climbed to number 11 on the R&B chart in 1978. The song's reach did not stop there. In 1990, rapper Candyman sampled it for Knockin' Boots, which hit number 9 on the Hot 100.
But I know so little about what love is.
In 1991, Color Me Bad built their hit I Wanna Sex You Up around a sample from the live version without clearing the rights. Wright sued. She won. She walked away with 35% of the royalties from one of the biggest singles of that year.
Hope you're not impatient after waiting so very long.
Betty Wright later became the first black female artist to achieve gold status on a self-released album. She was also the vocal coach for Destiny's Child, Joss Stone, and the Jonas Brothers.
And we're both old enough to know right from wrong.
Her mother was not happy about the song. She got over it. She turned her own story into a slow burn that outlived an entire decade. The next artist was an underrated queen who had to fight her way to the microphone before the world finally paid attention. Number 7, Come Share My Love, Miki Howard, 1986.
There's a light that cannot shine until
She got her first break by singing in a teenage beauty contest. An R&B bandleader named Augie Johnson was sitting in the audience, heard her voice, and signed her to his group's side effect on the spot. That is how quickly some people's talent announces itself.
you will be the one for me.
Miki Howard spent her formative years as a background vocalist and group member, lending her voice to recordings by Roy Ayers, Wayne Henderson, and Stanley Turrentine before going solo in the mid-1980s. When she signed with Atlantic Records and began recording Come Share My Love in 1986, she was in her late 20s, a seasoned vocalist with a deep pocket of experience and a voice that had been in rooms the public had not yet fully discovered.
And I'll give you all I have to give.
The title track, Come Share My Love, hit number 5 on the Billboard R&B chart in late 1986 and gave Howard her official arrival as a solo force. The album itself peaked at number 19 on the R&B albums chart.
Hoping you
Her follow-up single, Imagination, a song she had personally fought the producers to include on the album, charted at number 13. In 1988, she won the Soul Train Music Award for Best New Artist. Her unsung episode on TV One became the highest-rated episode of its entire season and was later adapted into a full television movie. Miki Howard never got the mainstream crossover her talent deserved. But for the people who knew, she was never a secret. She sang with everything she had every single time. She fought her way to that microphone and made every second count. The next artist drove a blues legend's car for a living and turned that same street-level hunger into one of the smoothest slow burns Chicago ever produced. Number 6, In the Mood, Tyrone Davis, 1979. He was born in Greenville, Mississippi in 1937, the son of a preacher. He dropped out of school at 14, drifted north to Saginaw, Michigan with his father, and eventually landed in Chicago in 1959. With no recording contract, no connections, and no plan, just a voice that sounded like warm gravel wrapped in velvet and a desire to be somebody.
Girl, I wanna make sweet love to you.
Davis found a job as a valet and chauffeur for bluesman Freddie King, one of the most electrifying live performers in Chicago at the time. He drove King to gigs, loaded equipment, watched every show from the wings, and quietly absorbed everything he saw.
It ain't no telling what I'm going to do.
It was during those years that he was struck by the desire to be an entertainer himself. He began sitting in at clubs around the city's south and west sides under the name Tyrone the Wonder Boy, and a pianist named Harold Barrage took him under his wing and started coaching him. Davis also worked in a Chicago steel mill alongside fellow Mississippi native Otis Clay, spending his days in the factory and his nights on stage, grinding towards something he could feel but could not yet see.
Feeling good, feeling like you never felt.
In 1968, a Houston disc jockey named Wildchild began playing the B-side of Davis's new Dakar Records single, a song called Can I Change My Mind? And to everyone's surprise, it exploded. The song hit number 1 on the Billboard R&B chart on February 1st, 1969, replacing Marvin Gaye's I Heard It Through the Grapevine at the top spot, and peaked at number 5 on the Hot 100.
And honey, my love is gonna make you melt.
The man who had been driving another musician's car 8 years earlier had just knocked Marvin Gaye off the R&B chart. MTV later dubbed Davis the king of romantic Chicago soul, and for good reason. He had 3 number 1 R&B hits across his career in 1968, 1970, and 1975, making him one of the most consistently successful soul artists of his era.
Girl, we ain't got no time to lose.
In the Mood was recorded at Universal Recording Studio in Chicago in 1979, produced by his longtime collaborator Leo Graham, and released in March of that year. The title track peaked at number 6 on the Billboard Hot Soul Singles chart. The song moves exactly the way its title promises: unhurried, confident, deliberate, built on a silky groove, with Davis's baritone riding low over the arrangement like he has nowhere else to be and no desire to get there quickly.
My heart is crying.
The Oakland Post wrote that Davis artfully weaves his way through a beautiful array of ballads, pop tunes, and disco funk. That weaving is the point. Davis never shouted for attention. He waited for you to come to him, and somehow, on records like this one, you always did.
I never need another, you're the one I choose.
Can I Change My Mind was originally the B-side of the single Radio Flipped It by accident, and the B-side became his first number 1. He was married to his wife Anne for over 40 years. He performed on a PBS special on 1970s soul music in 2004 and suffered a stroke in September of that year that ended his career.
Feel my love flowing in the night for you.
He died in a Chicago hospital on February 9, 2005, at the age of 67. The man who started as someone else's driver spent 40 years proving the world had underestimated him, and every slow, warm, unhurried note of In the Mood is the proof. He never rushed a single bar. The next artist was barely 20 years old when he announced himself to the world playing every instrument himself, and the world was not ready. Number 5, Soft, and Wet Prince, 1978. He played every single instrument on the album. Every one. The executives at Warner Bros., who heard the demo tapes, assumed they were listening to a full band. When they found out it was one 19-year-old from Minneapolis, some of them still did not believe it. Prince Rogers Nelson was born in Minneapolis in 1958 and began making professional recordings in 1976 with a local studio owner named Chris Moon, who ran a Minneapolis facility called Moon Sound. The deal Moon offered was simple. Prince could have unlimited access to the studio during off hours if he agreed to help set some of Moon's lyrics to music. Prince agreed. He came back with finished records that sounded like nothing else in the city, and Moon introduced him to a local businessman named Owen Husney, who packaged a demo and shopped it to major labels. Warner Bros. Signed Prince at 18 years old on the condition that he be given full creative control over his own production, an extraordinarily rare arrangement for a debut artist in 1977.
Everybody soft and wet.
Soft and Wet was released on June 7th, 1978, Prince's 20th birthday. He had recorded the debut album For You across 3 studios, playing every keyboard, every guitar, every bass line, every drum pattern himself, then layering them into a sound that music critics scrambled to categorize. The title of the first single kept it off certain radio stations immediately. Despite that, the song charted at number 92 on the Hot 100 and number 12 on the R&B chart, a successful debut for any artist, let alone a teenager. In the 1999 M. Night Shyamalan film Unbreakable, a character played by Robin Wright tells her husband that Soft and Wet is her favorite song. That is the kind of detail that proves some records never really go away. Prince went on to release Purple Rain, Sign o' the Times, and one of the most prolific and innovative catalogs in the history of popular music. He started with a 20-year-old alone in a studio, playing everything himself on his birthday with a song the radio would barely touch. We are halfway through the most deliberately seductive countdown Retro Vinyl has ever built. 5 songs in, and every single one of them rewrote the rules of how a slow burn is supposed to feel. The second half of this list goes deeper, gets quieter, and hits harder. If you have not subscribed to Retro Vinyl yet, do it now. And drop in the comments which of these records do you already have saved on your playlist.
Hey, baby, let me stay. I don't care.
The next artist built one of the smoothest voices in the history of soul and used it to make a slow burn feel like a prayer. Number 4, Body and Soul, Anita Baker, 1994.
What have you done to me? I can't eat.
There is a specific quality to Anita Baker's voice that music writers have spent 40 years trying to describe and never quite nailed something warm and close and honest, like the sound is coming from directly in front of you in a quiet room rather than out of a speaker.
All of me wants all of it. Do I stand alone?
Baker was born in Toledo, Ohio in 1958 and raised in Detroit, where she began singing in church as a child. She spent years developing her craft before her 1986 album Rapture became one of the definitive Quiet Storm records of the decade, reaching number 11 on the Billboard 200 and earning her multiple Grammy nominations.
Now I wanna walk through your door.
Her distinctive approach, deeply rooted in jazz and gospel, resistant to trends, unwilling to be pushed toward the mainstream by producers who wanted something more commercially obvious, made her one of the most critically respected voices of her era. Body and Soul was released as the lead single from her 5th album Rhythm of Love in August 1994, and it became her first top 40 pop hit since 1989. The album peaked at number 3 on the Billboard 200 and number 1 on the R&B chart, earning double platinum certification. For this album, Baker split from her longtime production partner, Michael J. Powell, for the first time since 1983, and recorded at studios across New York, Detroit, California, and New Jersey, a process that stretched across 1993 and 1994.
The more that I trust you, I feel stronger.
Body and Soul was written by Ellen Shipley and Rick Nowels, and in Baker's hands it became something that transcended its lyrics and became a statement about what romantic devotion sounds like when it is completely unperformed. She later sued her own record label, Elektra, for failing to adequately promote the album. She won the dispute, transferred to Atlantic Records, and kept going. Anita Baker does not compromise. She never has. And every note of Body and Soul proves exactly why that matters. Number 3, Inside My Love, Minnie Riperton, 1975.
Two people
Leon Ware said the lyrics were inspired by a church preacher he heard as a child, someone who stood at the pulpit and invited his congregation to come inside the house of the Lord. Ware took that image, those specific words, and built a song around them that radio programmers across America refused to play.
Barely touching each other.
Minnie Riperton co-wrote Inside My Love with Leon Ware and her husband Richard Rudolph in 1975, the same year Ware was developing the sessions that would become Marvin Gaye's I Want You. The two projects were being built at nearly the same time, in the same creative atmosphere, by the same musical mind.
Two spirits greeted.
Inside My Love appeared on Riperton's third album, Adventures in Paradise, released on Epic Records in May 1975. The song hit number 26 on the R&B chart and number 76 on the pop chart, restrained numbers that reflected a commercial radio reluctance to embrace the lyric rather than any shortage of quality in the music.
Do you wanna ride inside my love?
Leon Ware later recalled performing the song live with Riperton. When we performed it live, people would fall out. They could never believe it when Minnie held that note. Riperton would introduce the song at concerts by saying, "This is the song that got me banned." But I got a letter from a nun who said she didn't think anything was wrong with it at all. In fact, she kind of got off on it.
Two strangers, not strangers.
The song contains one of the most extraordinary vocal moments in the history of recorded music, a 15-second passage just past the 3-minute mark, where Riperton holds a crystalline soprano note above Joe Sample's Rhodes piano while the groove continues beneath her, creating something that sounds less like a performance and more like a state of being.
While we're here.
In 1993, a tribe called Quest sampled that exact passage for their track Lyrics to Go, carrying the song's intimacy into the hip-hop era and straight into the next generation of listeners.
Fulfilling our yearning.
The nun was right all along. She held a single note for 15 seconds and invented a new definition of the word longing. The next artist was 27 years old when she stepped into a recording studio and became the most unexpected sex symbol in pop music history.
All against my face, I can feel your...
Number 2, Anytime, Anyplace, Janet Jackson, 1993.
Anytime, any place I...
The album that launched this song was Janet Jackson's public declaration that she was done being managed, packaged, or processed into something other than what she actually was.
I don't wanna stop just because people walking by.
Janet Jackson's 5th studio album, simply titled Janet, was released in May 1993 when she was 27 years old. It was a deliberate departure from everything that had preceded it, the controlled perfection of control, the activist density of Rhythm Nation 1814, and instead explored intimacy, desire, and personal freedom with a directness that stunned critics and audiences who had grown comfortable with a particular version of Janet Jackson. The album was co-written and co-produced by Jackson with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis, the production duo who had built her sound since 1986, and it debuted at number 1 on the Billboard 200. Anytime, Any Place was released as the album's 5th single in May 1994. The song reached number 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and hit number 1 on the R&B chart. It features saxophone, finger snaps, the the sound of rain, and thunder elements chosen with a deliberateness that makes the entire production feel less like a recording and more like a room you are inside.
Dancing on the floor, feeling the slow groove.
In 2025, Anytime, Anyplace trended to number 7 on the TikTok Music Charts 30, 2 years after its release, as a new generation discovered that the directness of its message had not aged a single day.
I was thinking maybe we could, well, you know.
Jackson co-wrote and co-produced every track on the album, and the creative relationship she had built with Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis by this point was so deep and so fluent that Jam later described their sessions as intuitive in a way that was almost hard to articulate.
Strangers all around, the lights still low.
Anytime, Anyplace is the sound of an artist who knows exactly who she is, what she wants, and how she wants to say it. That kind of confidence is the most seductive thing a record can carry. She walked into the studio knowing exactly what she wanted and made a song that still finds new audiences 30 years later. What comes next is the record that changed the entire definition of how a slow burn is supposed to feel. Number 1, I Want You, Marvin Gaye, 1976. He sang most of the vocals lying flat on his back on the studio floor. His girlfriend was in the room, and the man who wrote the songs had originally written them for someone else entirely. Leon Ware had developed a suite of deeply intimate, sensual songs with lyricist Arthur T. Boy Ross during the mid-1970s, a collection originally intended as a demo for another project. Ware brought the material to Marvin Gaye, who had been struggling to find a follow-up to Let's Get It On, and whose personal life was in the kind of beautiful, complicated turmoil that only the most emotionally honest music can hold. Gaye had met 17-year-old Janice Hunter through a mutual friend. He had fallen completely. He had already written some of Let's Get It On with her presence in mind, and now he had an entire album of Leon Ware's compositions waiting to absorb everything he felt. Gaye did not rewrite the songs dramatically. He inhabited them. He brought Janice to the recording sessions at his private studio, Marvin's room, and he sang directly to her, improvisational, relaxed, horizontal. CBC Music later reported that Gaye was so at ease during the sessions he sang most of the vocals lying down in the voice booth on his back.
Don't play with something you should cherish for life.
The single I Want You was recorded in 1975 and released in April 1976. It hit number 1 on the R&B chart and number 15 on the pop chart. It sold over 1 million copies. The album it came from, which Berry Gordy had considered too uncommercial, was later praised by Mary J. Blige D'Angelo and Todd Rundgren as a foundational influence on contemporary soul and neo-soul.
But I'm gonna change your mind somehow.
Janice Hunter and Marvin Gaye married and divorced within 3 years. The record outlasted all of it. Here is the irony at the center of the story. Leon Ware released his own version of the same songs on his album Musical Massage in 1976, with very little promotion from Motown, which rushed it out as an afterthought. Ware's version sold 12,000 copies. Gaye's version sold 1 million. The difference was not the songs. It was a man lying on his back in a studio, singing to the only person in the room who mattered. 10 songs, 5 decades, and 1 lesson that connects every artist on this countdown. The most seductive records were never the loudest. They didn't demand your attention. They earned it. Whether it was Eddie Holman's unforgettable falsetto, Sylvia's Whispered Rebellion, Betty Wright's Honesty,
Ooh, you can't find love on a one-way street. It takes
Prince's youthful brilliance, Minnie Riperton's impossible vocals, or Marvin Gaye transforming desire into art. Every song here understood the same secret. A true slow burn doesn't rush. It lingers. It reveals itself one listen at a time. And years later, sometimes decades later, it's still there, waiting for you exactly where you left it.
Came the day I found you.
This is Retro Vinyl. Tell us your number one slow burn R&B song in the comments. Subscribe for more deep dives into music history, and until next time, keep the needle on the record and the volume where it belongs.